She stood at the velvet rope, a sea of well-dressed faces. The security guard looked her up and down. Then he smiled and said the words that cut her smaller than the crowd around her. "Sorry, ma'am. This is private tonight." She wasn't a guest. She wasn't a stranger. She was the one who owned half the block. But what happened next shocked everyone. She walked up to the entrance like every other guest that night. Same dress code, same reservation. But to him, she didn't look like she belonged. The security guard's eyes scanned her top to bottom. Then he smirked and lifted his hand. "Sorry, ma'am. Private event tonight." She froze. Private? She had been personally invited by the restaurant's owner himself. But before she could explain, he pointed to a couple behind her. "Right this way, sir." They walked past her, laughing, without even showing a reservation. The guard's hand stayed firm on the rope. The message was clear. "You don't fit here." For a moment, she thought she misheard. Maybe it was a mistake, so she smiled politely and said, "There must be some confusion. My name's Ava Williams. I have a table booked for 7. He tilted his head, almost amused. "Ma'am, I think you're mistaken. This place isn't for walk-ins." Walk-ins. That word hit harder than she expected. Because she wasn't a walk-in. She was one of the investors who'd helped fund this very restaurant's launch 6 months ago. But tonight, nobody seemed to remember that. The doorman's smirk, the sideways looks from guests in line, the silence that followed her name, it all told her the same story. A story she'd heard her entire life. Still, she didn't argue. She took one slow breath, turned away, and whispered to herself, "All right, we'll play it your way." As she walked down the marble steps, her heels echoed through the night air. She could feel the sting of humiliation, not because she was turned away, but because she realized that even success didn't make her invisible to bias. She got into her car, a sleek black sedan, and just sat there, quiet, no tears, just silence and thought. Because Ava Williams wasn't just any woman denied at a door. She was a CEO, a silent investor, and one phone call away from changing everything about that place. But little did they know, everything was about to change. Ava sat in the car for exactly 3 minutes. 3 minutes of silence. 3 minutes of letting the sting sink in. Then she reached for her phone. She didn't call her assistant. She didn't call her lawyer. She called the one person who always answered on the first ring. "Hey, what happened?" Her best friend, Marcus, sounded casual, but the moment he heard her voice, he knew. "Marcus," she whispered, "they wouldn't let me in." "What do you mean, wouldn't let you in?" "The guard, he said it was private. I told him my name. He looked right at me and said, 'We don't take walk-ins.'" A pause. Then Marcus laughed, not because it was funny, but because the absurdity hurt. "You mean that restaurant you funded?" "Exactly, that one." He went silent. Then, "Where are you right now?" "Parking lot, still outside." "Good," he said. "Don't move." 5 minutes later, headlights slid across her windshield. Marcus's charcoal SUV stopped beside her. He stepped out in his gray coat, tie loosened, jaw tight. "Stay here," he said. But Ava had never been the type to stay anywhere she didn't belong. She opened her door. "I'm coming." Together, they walked back toward the golden doorway. Same velvet rope. Same guard. Only this time, the air felt different. The guard's eyes flicked between them. "Didn't I already tell you?" Marcus cut him off. "Yeah, you did. And that's exactly why we're back." He pulled out his phone and started recording. "Go ahead," he said. "Say it again. Tell her she can't come in." The guard straightened. "Sir, you can't record." "Oh, I can," Marcus replied. "This is a public entrance to a private business that just denied access to one of its owners. So yeah, I can." The guard's face twitched. "Owners?" Ava stepped forward. "Yes, owners." Her tone was soft but sharp enough to slice through the background chatter. A couple waiting in line glanced over. Someone pulled out their phone too. That was all it took. In seconds, a small crowd began to watch. The guard swallowed. I just follow orders." "Whose?" Marcus asked. "Manager's." Ava tilted her head. "Then get him." The manager came out moments later. Tall, polished, the kind of man who wore his smile like a uniform. He looked from the guard to Ava, then back. "Is there a problem here?" "There was," Ava said evenly. "Your guard refused my entry." The manager's smile didn't break. "Well, I'm sure it was a misunderstanding." "No," Marcus said. "It was crystal clear. He said she doesn't look like she belongs." The manager's eyes flickered. He turned to the guard. "That's not what you said, is it?" The guard shifted. "Sir, I just said—" Marcus lifted his phone. "Want to hear the playback?" Click. The audio filled the entryway. The guard's own voice echoed through the marble hall. "We don't take walk-ins, and we don't seat folks like that." The line hit like a thunderclap. Every waiter within earshot froze. The valet stopped mid-step. The manager's face lost its color. "Folks like that." Those 3 words, a dagger dressed as policy. The manager stammered. I assure you that's not our company stance." "No," Ava said quietly. "It's yours." She turned and started walking away. The rope fell back into place, but this time it felt like a boundary she was about to erase forever. Marcus jogged after her. "Where are you going?" "To my office." Back inside her car, she opened her laptop. Her reflection stared back from the dark screen, composed, furious, focused. Within minutes, she pulled up her investment portfolio. Restaurant Group LLC. Her ownership, 17% stake. Enough to request an emergency board meeting. Enough to open the books. Enough to end careers. But she didn't send the email yet. Instead, she clicked record. Date, Date, Friday night, time, 8:43 p.m. Incident, racial discrimination at, she said the restaurant's name clearly, her voice steady. Then she saved the file. Evidence, her truth, untouched. Across town, Marcus couldn't sleep. He uploaded the clip to a private drive and shared it with one person he trusted more than anyone in local media. Kendra Lopez, the reporter who broke 2 corruption stories the previous year. Kendra, he wrote, you'll want to see this before it blows up. She watched the video once, then twice. By morning, she called him. Marcus, is that Ava Williams? The Ava Williams? The one and only. And that's her restaurant? Technically. Oh my God. She didn't need more convincing. Within hours, the clip had found its way to a local influencers page with the caption, Black woman denied entry to a restaurant she helped fund. We need answers. By lunchtime, it had 50,000 views. By dinner, 500,000. The restaurant tried to respond fast. A public relations email, a scripted apology, a promise of internal investigation. But the internet wasn't buying corporate lines anymore. People zoomed in on the clip. They caught the guard's grin. They saw the way Ava tried to explain herself, the way the laughter behind her went silent when she said her name. Comments flooded in. This happens all the time. She handled that with grace. Fire him and the manager, too. Own the place, queen. And through it all, Ava said nothing. Not yet. Because she was busy doing something bigger. Pulling records, emails, agreements, stock valuations. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. That evening, the manager paced inside his office. The owner called him 4 times. Every time, his answer was the same. It's under control. It wasn't. A waiter knocked. Sir, there's media outside. He pulled the blinds, cameras, reporters. The story had jumped from social media to the evening news. He rubbed his temples, panic setting in. How did this happen so fast? And then, the phone on his desk lit up. Unknown number. He answered. Mr. Langford, a calm voice said. This is Ava Williams. I believe we've met briefly. He froze. Her voice, controlled, polite, icy. Ava, listen, I want to personally apologize. No, she cut in. I'm not calling for apologies. I'm calling for access. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., I'll be in your conference room. Bring your shareholders. Click. He stared at the phone. His hand trembled. The security guard knocked softly. Sir, you wanted me? Langford looked up at him. For the first time, his voice was small. You might want to start looking for another job. That night, the city buzzed. Some cheered her courage. Others whispered that she'd gone too far. But Ava didn't care about chatter. She cared about principle. Because this, all of it, was never about a dinner reservation. It was about a pattern she'd seen her whole life. Dressed in new suits, hiding behind new smiles. She thought about her grandmother, the woman who taught her to never let humiliation be the period in her story. When they try to make you small, her grandmother used to say, buy the ground they stand on. Ava smiled. Maybe it was time to do exactly that. She opened her laptop again, this time drafting a purchase offer. The restaurant's current valuation sat on her screen. She knew their debt load, their cash flow gaps, their investor disagreements. All weaknesses she could leverage. She typed slowly, methodically, adding a clause that would make her majority owner by Monday morning. Then she hit send. At sunrise, the manager arrived early, eyes red from a sleepless night. He walked into the boardroom and stopped cold. Ava was already there. Tailored suit, calm smile, a cup of coffee steaming beside her laptop. Good morning, Mr. Langford. He blinked. How did you get in? Front door was open, she said. I told security I belonged here. They agreed. She slid a folder across the table. In there, you'll find an acquisition proposal. Effective immediately, I've purchased controlling interest in this restaurant. He flipped through the pages, face draining. What? How? You undervalued your shares last quarter, she replied. I simply took advantage of a good deal. He sank into a chair. You can't just, I can, and I did. She leaned forward. I'm not here for revenge, Mr. Langford. I'm here for respect. For every woman who's been told she doesn't belong. For every guest who's been looked up and down before being welcomed. That ends today. Outside, reporters gathered again. But this time, the story had changed. The headline read, Black woman denied entry, now owns the restaurant. The clip replayed next to a new photo. Ava Williams standing inside the restaurant's foyer, holding the keys, the same velvet rope behind her, now cut in half. She didn't smile for the cameras. She simply said, let's get to work. And when the truth came out, no one could believe their eyes. The next morning, the city woke up to her name, Ava Williams. Front page, every headline, every post. Some called her a hero. Others called her ruthless. But Ava didn't read the comments. She never had time for noise. She had a meeting to run. Her restaurant now. The staff room was quiet when she walked in. Half the employees looked nervous. The other half, relieved. They'd all seen the clip. They'd all heard the words. Folks like that. It was the kind of phrase that didn't just hurt one person. It cracked the floor under everyone's feet. Ava stood at the front of the room, calm, composed. Morning, she said softly. No mic, no notes, just presence. I know the last 24 hours have been messy. I know many of you are scared for your jobs, but I'm not here to fire people. I'm here to fix what's broken. Murmurs rippled through the room. She continued. When I invested in this place, I believed in more than profits. I believed in people. people. Somewhere along the way, that got lost. So starting today, we rebuild. From the kitchen, up. She looked directly at the security guard standing at the back. The same man who'd stopped her at the door. His shoulders were hunched, his eyes on the floor. He looked nothing like the man from that night. Mr. Jenkins, she said quietly. He looked up. Yes, ma'am. I'm not firing you. A shocked whisper spread across the room. Instead, Ava continued, you'll join the new inclusion and hospitality training I'm launching. Not because you deserve punishment, but because we all deserve better understanding. The guard's mouth opened, then closed again. Ava nodded gently. You'll learn, you'll grow, and you'll teach others what that moment taught you. He swallowed hard. Yes, ma'am. After the meeting, Marcus pulled her aside. You sure about that? He asked. You could have replaced him in a heartbeat. Ava glanced back at the room. He was a symptom, not the sickness, she said. The real disease was comfort, the comfort of people who never question what they're told. Marcus smirked. That's deep. You plan to cure the whole city while you're at it? Ava smiled faintly. Maybe just my corner of it. By afternoon, journalists camped outside the restaurant. Camera flashes. Questions. Miss Williams, why not press charges? Are you planning to rename the restaurant? Is this about revenge? Ava didn't stop. She simply said, this isn't revenge, this is repair. But not everyone liked that answer. Behind the scenes, the former manager, Mr. Langford, wasn't done. He still had friends on the board. Quiet ones, wealthy ones. The kind of men who'd built careers pretending they didn't see bias because bias paid their bonuses. He met them that evening in a private country club, away from cameras. We can't let her control the narrative, one said. She's making us look corrupt, another added. Langford slammed his drink down. She is corrupt. She ambushed us. Used that video to manipulate public sympathy. They all nodded. We'll leak something, one suggested. Say she faked the incident, staged it for PR. Langford grinned. Perfect. I still have access to the internal cameras. We'll edit the footage, make it look like she provoked him. But lies travel fast, until they meet truth. That same night, Marcus's phone buzzed. It was Kendra, the reporter. You need to see this, she said, sending a file. A short video. Clipped, blurry, the edited version of the incident. The guard looking innocent, Ava looking aggressive. A manufactured lie. Marcus cursed under his breath. He immediately called Ava. Check your email, he said. She opened it, watching the doctored clip play out. Then she smiled. A cold, knowing smile. Let them try. Try what? To rewrite my story, she said. They always do, but not this time. The next morning, Ava arrived at the restaurant early. She gathered her new leadership team, the head chef, the HR director, and a young hostess named Tasha. Tasha, she said, I want you to oversee our social presence. No PR firm, just real voices, real transparency. Yes, ma'am. And the first post, Ava continued, upload the uncut security footage. All of it. Tasha blinked. The real one? The real one, Ava said. The truth doesn't need editing. Minutes later, the clip went live. No dramatic captions, no filters, just raw footage. The exact moment she was turned away, every word crystal clear. By noon, it hit 1 million views. By evening, 5 million. The fake version was dead on arrival. Langford's plan backfired spectacularly. He resigned 2 days later under public pressure. The board released a statement praising Ava's leadership and transparency. But Ava didn't celebrate, because to her, this wasn't victory. It was validation. That weekend, Ava drove to her grandmother's old house, the one with the magnolia tree in front. The house she'd grown up in before life turned her into a businesswoman with a calendar full of meetings. She sat on the porch, remembering the lessons from that kitchen table. If they shut you out of one door, build your own. If they tell you no, let that be your fuel. She whispered it aloud this time. Grandma, I built it, but it cost more than money. Her voice cracked for the first time in days. She realized strength was heavy. Even justice came with weight. The following Monday, Ava returned to the restaurant with a plan. A real one. She called it the Open Door Project. Every Friday night, the restaurant would host a community dinner. Open seating, discounted meals, and live mentoring sessions between business owners and young professionals from underserved neighborhoods. When she announced it, people thought it was charity. It wasn't. It was transformation. Because the same place that once told her, you don't belong, would now feed the very people who'd heard that line their entire lives. Weeks passed. Business boomed. Reservations doubled. Customers said they came not just for the food, but for the story. Ava hired new staff. Diverse, trained, motivated. The energy inside was different now. People smiled with their eyes, not just their mouths. And the guard, Mr. Jenkins, worked every shift like a man trying to rebuild his name. One night after closing, he approached Ava. Miss Williams? Yes? He hesitated, then said quietly, I just wanted to thank you for not firing me. You had every right to. Ava looked up from her laptop. I didn't want your job. I wanted your growth. He nodded slowly. I'll never forget that night or how you handled it. Good, she said softly. Because the world doesn't change when people get fired. It changes when people wake up. But not everyone had woken up. A week later, Ava received an anonymous email. No greeting, no signature, just a threat. You've embarrassed powerful people. Step down before they make you. Marcus found her pacing her office that night. You okay? She handed him the message. He read it, frowned, then tossed his phone on the desk. They're scared, he said. That's all this is. But scared people do stupid stupid things, Ava replied. Then let's stay 2 steps ahead, Marcus said. And they did. He hired private security. She kept her composure, and they kept moving forward. By the 3rd month, Ava's restaurant wasn't just a place to eat. It was a symbol. News outlets called her the woman who turned humiliation into hope. College students quoted her speech in essays. Corporate leaders invited her to diversity panels. She didn't say yes to all of them. She chose her moments carefully, because she knew the more you rise, the more people wait for your fall. But she didn't fear falling. She'd already been on the ground once, outside that door, and she'd learned that even the floor can be a foundation if you know how to build on it. Late one evening, she walked through the restaurant alone. The lights dimmed, the kitchen clean. In the corner, that same velvet rope, now coiled and tucked away, sat on a shelf. She picked it up, running her fingers along the fabric, the symbol of that night, the boundary that tried to define her. Now, just a memory. She smiled to herself and whispered, "Never again." Then she dropped it into the trash bin. The sound, soft, final, echoed louder than applause. But this time, they refused to stay silent. For weeks, everything seemed calm. The restaurant was thriving, the team united, the city inspired. But Ava knew peace rarely lasts long when power changes hands. And she was right. It started with a phone call, late night, unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something, that quiet instinct that never lies, made her pick up. "Ms. Williams?" "Yes, this is Detective Harris with the Business Integrity Unit. We need to speak in person." Her pulse slowed. "About what?" "It's about your restaurant and one of your former partners. It's urgent." Next morning, the detective arrived. Sharp suit, cold eyes, manila folder in hand. He didn't waste time. "We've discovered multiple fraudulent transactions linked to the restaurant's early funding," he said. Ava frowned. "Fraudulent how?" "Transfers routed through offshore accounts. Someone used your name as authorization." Ava's heart dropped. "My name?" He slid the folder across the table. Inside, copies of wire forms, her digital signature, time-stamped from 6 months ago. But she hadn't signed a thing. Langford. The name hit her mind like thunder. He'd been the financial manager back then, the one handling investor accounts before everything went public. And now, he was trying to destroy her again, from the shadows. That night, Ava called Marcus. He was already halfway out the door when she said, "I think Langford forged my signature. He's setting me up." "Then we'll set him off," Marcus said. But Ava shook her head. "No, we do this right. Legally, transparently, no shortcuts." Marcus sighed. "That's the hard way." She looked him dead in the eye. "It's the only way." For the next 2 days, Ava didn't sleep. She dug through records, spreadsheets, emails, searching for proof. Every number told a story, every timestamp whispered a clue, until finally, she found it. A file buried deep in a shared folder. A voice memo. Langford's voice. Clear as glass. "She'll never notice. We'll reroute the funds before the audit. If anyone asks, blame the new assistant." Ava froze. She replayed it twice, then sent it straight to Detective Harris. By morning, the investigation turned. Langford's accounts were frozen. His allies vanished, and suddenly, Ava wasn't under scrutiny anymore. She was the whistleblower, but something still bothered her. Why had the detective reached out so suddenly? Why had they chosen now to reopen old files? Then it hit her. Someone inside had tipped them off. Someone she didn't know she could trust. Later that day, a quiet knock echoed at her office door. It was Mr. Jenkins, the security guard. "Miss Williams, there's something you should know," he said nervously. Ava looked up. "What is it?" He handed her a small envelope. "No return address, but it was left at the front desk this morning. Said it was for you." She opened it. Inside, a handwritten note. Langford wasn't working alone. Check the board. One of them signed the authorizations. No name, no signature, just truth, dropped like a bomb. That night, Ava sat alone in her office. The walls seemed to hum with silence. She thought about every board meeting, every handshake, every fake smile that had greeted her since day one. Who could it be? Who had pretended to support her while stabbing her in the back? She pulled out her investor list. 10 names, 9 men. One woman, Victoria Ames. Victoria had been quiet, polite, and always voted neutral, too neutral. Ava leaned back, thinking, and then it clicked. Victoria had co-signed the transfer forms, the same forms used in the fraud. The next morning, Ava called a board meeting. Calm voice, steady hands, but her eyes sharp as glass. Everyone gathered, not knowing why. Langford's seat was empty, the air thick with quiet tension. "Thank you for coming," Ava began. "I wanted to address the recent investigation. As you all know, some irregularities were found in our funding. The guilty parties will face justice. But before we move forward, there's one thing I need to make clear." She turned to Victoria. "I found your signature on those authorizations. Would you like to explain?" The room went silent. Victoria's eyes widened. "That's impossible." Ava slid the printed forms across the table. "Your name, your access code, your approval timestamp, all from your office computer." Victoria's hands shook. I didn't know what Langford was doing. He said it was just paperwork. He said..." Ava's voice cut her off, calm but cold. "He said a lot of things, and you listened, because silence is easier than courage." Victoria's tears came fast. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Ava exhaled slowly. "I don't need sorry. I need honesty, and you're going to give it publicly." The next morning, Ava held a press conference, not to defend herself, to teach. Behind her stood the entire staff, including Victoria. Victoria. I was denied entry to my own investment once, Ava began. Not because of policy, but because of perception. And when people like me speak up, the world often tries to silence us with lies. But here's the truth. Accountability is not revenge. It's redemption. She looked at Victoria beside her. Ms. Ames has come forward to admit her role in the oversight. She's cooperating fully with authorities. Reporters scribbled notes. Cameras flashed. And Ava finished with one line that echoed across headlines. You can't bury truth under paperwork. It always bleeds through the ink. That night, Ava and Marcus sat on the restaurant balcony overlooking the city. He raised a glass. To truth, she smiled. To peace, he chuckled. You think it's over? Ava smirked. No, Marcus. The truth's just the beginning. They sat in silence for a while. Below them, the restaurant glowed like a heartbeat. Steady, alive, unstoppable. Because Ava had learned something powerful. When you stop chasing approval, you start commanding respect. Days passed like smoke after fire. But beneath the calm, Ava could feel it. The storm wasn't over. Langford had vanished from headlines. No arrest yet, no apology, just silence. And in Ava's world, silence was never peace. It was warning. One Thursday night, while she reviewed new contracts, Marcus burst into her office. Turn on the TV, he said. Ava frowned, grabbing the remote. And there he was, Langford, on live television, sitting across from a smug morning show host. I was betrayed, Langford was saying. That restaurant was my dream. She stole it, and now she's using fake evidence to ruin me. Ava's jaw tightened. Marcus muttered, he's desperate. Langford leaned forward on screen. She's not the hero she claims to be. You'll all see soon enough. Ava's reflection glimmered in the screen. Calm face, fire in the eyes. She picked up her phone. Get the team ready, she said. Marcus raised a brow. For what? For the truth. The next day, Ava called a press dinner, an open event at the restaurant. Every major outlet was invited. No scripts, no filters, just a table, a mic, and transparency. By evening, the dining hall was packed. Cameras lined the walls. The air was heavy with anticipation. And when Ava stepped up to the podium, dressed in white, calm, commanding, the room fell silent. She began softly. 6 months ago, I invested in this restaurant to create opportunity. A month ago, I was denied entry to it. And last week, I was accused of fraud. She paused. You've heard their stories. Tonight, you'll hear mine. The screen behind her flickered to life, showing the uncut audio files, the financial trails, the timestamps, proof of Langford's embezzlement. Every detail, every lie exposed. Then came the final piece, the voice memo. Langford's voice echoed through the speakers. She'll never notice. We'll reroute the funds before the audit. If anyone asks, blame the new assistant. Gasps filled the room. Phones recorded. The host from that morning show was in the audience. Jaw dropped. Ava waited for silence, then said calmly, I didn't come here to destroy anyone. I came here to remind everyone that truth doesn't need PR. It just needs patience. Minutes later, Marcus stepped forward with one last reveal, a legal document. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, as of today, the board has unanimously voted to transfer full ownership of this establishment to Ms. Ava Williams. Applause broke out, thunderous, raw. Reporters stood, clapping. Staff cheered. But Ava just smiled softly, whispering to herself, finally, full circle. Outside, the city lights shimmered. But down the block, a black sedan sat quietly, engine running. Inside, Langford watched the live stream on his phone, face twisted with rage. He slammed the screen shut, gripping the steering wheel. She thinks she's won, he hissed. Then he started the engine. Back inside, the celebration continued. Glasses clinked, cameras flashed. Ava stepped out to the balcony for air. For the first time in months, she let herself breathe. But then, headlights. A car pulled up fast, too fast. Marcus shouted, Ava, move! The sedan screeched to a halt inches from the curb. Langford jumped out, wild-eyed, desperate, broken. You ruined me, he screamed. You took everything. Ava didn't flinch. I didn't take anything. I reclaimed what was mine. You embarrassed me in front of the whole world. You did that yourself, she replied quietly. He stepped closer. For a moment, the crowd inside froze, unsure if they should intervene. Langford's voice cracked. You'll regret this. Ava looked at him steady. No, Langford, you will. Blue and red lights flashed in the distance. Sirens grew louder. Detective Harris stepped from his car, shouting, Michael Langford, you're under arrest for fraud, forgery, and obstruction of justice. The officers cuffed him as reporters rushed outside, cameras rolling. Langford's voice broke into a hoarse yell. She set me up! This isn't over! Ava stood still, watching him taken away. Her voice low, but powerful enough to cut through the noise. It's been over. You just refused to see it. The next morning, every headline carried one image. Ava standing on the restaurant steps, calm amid chaos. Langford in cuffs behind her. Caption, she bought it. She fixed it. She owned it. Later that day, Ava met Marcus on the rooftop garden. He raised an eyebrow. You okay? Ava smiled faintly. Peace feels strange. I'm still learning it. Marcus chuckled. You earned it. You turned pain into power. She looked out at the skyline, the sun dipping low, painting gold on glass. Funny, she said. They told me I didn't belong in that restaurant. Now it belongs to me. He grinned. And to everyone you'll feed through it, Ava nodded. Exactly. Inside, her staff was closing up. Mr. Jenkins, the guard, stood by the door, checking checking locks. When she passed, he straightened. "Good night, Ms. Williams," she smiled. "Good night, Mr. Jenkins, and thank you for standing by truth." He nodded, proud. "Always will, ma'am." As the lights dimmed, Ava took one last look around. This wasn't just a restaurant anymore. It was a monument, built from humiliation, rebuilt through justice. She whispered to herself, no one expected what came next. Then she turned off the last light and walked out, into the night that once tried to swallow her, now walking as the woman who owned it. The city forgot fast, but Ava didn't, because while headlines faded, lessons stayed. And for Ava Williams, every scar had a story. Every silence had meaning. Every no she ever heard had built the woman standing now. It was 6 months later, a warm summer evening. The restaurant's new name glowed softly in gold above the door. The open door. People laughed, music played, and the same marble steps that once echoed with rejection now shone with welcome. Every Friday night, those steps filled with families, students, and strangers, people from every background, every story, and each one walked in freely. No rope, no hesitation, just warmth. Inside, Ava moved through the tables, smiling. She wasn't the boss tonight, just another soul sharing space with joy. She paused by the front door. Mr. Jenkins stood there, greeting guests. Same position, different man. "Good evening, folks. Welcome to the open door," he said, grinning. Ava caught his eye. They exchanged a quiet nod, no words needed. He'd become more than an employee. He'd become a symbol of change. Later that night, Ava slipped away to her office. She opened the old safe, and inside, she kept one thing, the small piece of velvet rope from that night, frayed at the edges, once a barrier, now a reminder. She placed it in a frame on her wall. Below it, a single engraved line. "They said I didn't belong, so I built a place where everyone does." A few minutes later, Marcus knocked. "Hey, Ava, you got a minute?" "Always," she smiled. He handed her a letter. "Mail just came in. You might want to see this." She opened it. Inside was a handwritten note. Messy, nervous penmanship. "Miss Williams, I was wrong. I judged you that night without knowing your story. I've watched what you've built, and it's beautiful. Thank you for giving me a second chance. D. Jenkins." Ava smiled softly. She whispered, "We all need one." Weeks turned into months. The restaurant grew into something bigger. Not just a business, but a movement. Other entrepreneurs called. They wanted to learn her model, how she mixed community, cuisine, and conscience into profit with purpose. She didn't charge them for advice. She just told them, start with people. Profit follows peace. And they listened. 1 year later, the open door expanded to 2 more cities, each one run by local managers trained under Ava's program. Many of them young black professionals who once thought dreams like this were unreachable. Each restaurant had the same framed words on the wall. Each one had a velvet rope behind glass. A memory turned into meaning. One evening, during an interview, a reporter asked, "What's your secret, Ms. Williams? How did you turn humiliation into success?" Ava smiled faintly, thinking back to that night. The guard, the cold look, the ache in her chest. Then she said, "I stopped asking for entry and started creating doors." The audience fell silent. The cameras captured her glow, calm, radiant, unbothered, and millions of viewers at home felt something shift inside them. Because her story wasn't just about money, it was about value, about being told you're not enough and proving that you always were. That night, when the restaurant closed, Ava sat alone by the window. The city lights twinkled below. She could hear laughter from the kitchen, soft jazz from the speakers, the heartbeat of something she'd built from pain. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Grandma, I made it." On the wall behind her hung framed newspaper clippings. CEO buys the restaurant that denied her. Ava Williams's story sparks movement for change. The woman who turned no into nationwide hope. But the last frame was empty, waiting for the next headline she hadn't written yet. Because Ava knew her story wasn't done. Every day, someone else was being told, you don't belong. And her mission was to make sure they always had a place to walk in. The next morning, a group of young interns arrived. Nervous, but excited. Ava greeted them personally. "Welcome to the open door," she said. "This isn't just a restaurant, it's a reminder. That respect isn't a gift, it's a right." They nodded, and one young girl whispered, "I saw your story online. You inspired me to start my own bakery." Ava smiled. Then my story did its job. That evening, she walked out into the sunset. The golden light caught her reflection in the restaurant's window. The same place that once shut her out now reflected her standing tall. And for the first time in her life, she didn't feel like she was proving anything. She just was. Because in the end, it was never about revenge. It was about restoration. And that's what she'd built. A world where dignity had a seat at the table. As the night deepened, Ava looked back one last time at her glowing sign. The open door. It shimmered in the dark like hope itself. She whispered, because in life, the truth always finds its way.